Tsogo Sun owns Southern Sun hotels and a number of gaming venues, including Montecasino, north of Johannesburg. It has a market cap of 29.8 billion rand. Tsogo Sun's key shareholders are Hoskin Consolidated Investments and SAB Miller. Tsogo has a price-to-earnings ratio of 15.6 and a dividend yield of 2.2%. Well, let's get your take on Tsogo.
Well, yes. I mean, talking of gaming, I think gaming represents almost 4/5 of all profits here. And Montecasino is so huge, it's nearly a quarter of all profits. So Montecasino, that big chunk entertainment area, mostly derives their revenue from slots and from tables. So I think in the bigger picture, you have to say to yourself, the two shareholders, and they're a bit strange, but it's as a result of a historical relationship that SAB Miller had with Sol Kerzner. They own roughly 80% of the shares. I think it's 81. So the free float is quite small, but still it manages to trade pretty well.
And well, let's just talk about that trading. Chris, talk us through the share price action.
Yeah, now this is quite interesting because it's been rising quite nicely in the past year or so. Bear in mind that this is quite a different company than it was 2 or 3 years ago because of the fact that it acquired Gold Reef. So now Tsogo, it dominates in Gauteng and in KZN, whereas Sun International tends to dominate in Eastern and Western Capes. But I think it's been rising very, very nicely. The hotel side's also going along. I think it's a steady performer. As Sasha said, it's by no means the biggest chunk, nothing like it. But the gaming side are going very, very well indeed. And we saw last week, for example, an announcement that they're putting about another R1 billion worth into refurbishments.
And so that's good. We're seeing capex coming through.
Very much so.
A clear indication that the business is on a firm footing.
Yeah, and they're comfortable, and they've got pretty low gearing, ironically. But because of the merger of the two, neither party had to really take on any debt. So I think in this case, it was a perfect merger for shareholders. And HCI, very shrewd over there. Big shareholding from one of the predominant unions in South Africa, so there is political connections. In terms of overall gambling licenses in this country, I think they're 40, and I think they have 13 or so. So there isn't much more scope for room for growth. Yeah, exactly. So having 1/3 of the licenses, I mean, that obviously stands them in a really good stead.
Having had this good rally, what are your thoughts on the investment case? Because the point that Sasha's making is there's potentially not much more growth just from a regulatory perspective. They've got 13 or 40 licenses.
If I go back 5 or 6 years, I heard the same old argument. There's no more growth in this thing. However, what there is huge cash generation ability. And what they do, and what they have been doing for quite some time, is taking a portion of that cash at least, and on the Southern Sun side, moving into different parts of Africa. I mean, they moved into Dubai the best part of 10 years ago now, and they've been moving into other parts of Africa as well. So I think there's plenty of scope, particularly on the hotel side, even if geographical expansion in the casino side is limited.
Well, take that, Sasha. They've been saying for a long time there's no more growth, and look at the share price activity.
I think they have warned about more regulation. I think as government's budget gets tighter and tighter, they're going to look at soft targets like this and say, look guys, you have to pay up a bigger percentage of revenues, and that has been mooted both
But
at
it is an underlying philosophy at Vestact, if I take a cue from Paul Turan, that gaming is not your favorite arena.
Yeah, just because I think that there's gonna be more regulation in the coming years, and nobody wants to be facing those sort of regulatory hurdles or regulatory headwinds.
Chris, hot or not on Tsogo Sun?
I like Tsogo Sun. I think it's very hot.
Hot or not?
No, I'm going to have to go with no.